I'd actually like to start today by talking a little bit about the library. And the writer Borges has said that he always imagined that paradise would be a kind of library. And I love that image, that vision, because I just spent a couple of weeks in the British Library in London, and I would love to live in there. It was so beautiful and peaceful, and all the hours I've spent in libraries writing and thinking and reading, I really love that vision. And it reminded me, though, I was at a conference, a teaching conference, and we were having a workshop on metaphors for education, for higher education. And we were asked to complete the sentence, "University is," fill in the blank. And my immediate reaction, without any kind of editing, without any kind of second guessing, was, university is heaven. University is a paradise. And I kind of wondered at myself when I came out with that so spontaneously, because I think that if you work in a university, or you teach in a university, or you go to a university, and especially if you're someone like me who does some administrative work in a university, I think you'd agree that universities are not heaven. Universities are not paradise. But I thought about why I came to that very immediate feeling, that gut feeling. And it made me think about why I think the university is so important. Not just for our culture, for our society, for educating people to do jobs and have job skills and all the things we talk about that we value so highly and which are important. But I wanted to talk about the university in its ideal state. The model university and what it can do not only for our culture but for us as individual humans in the journeys that we take. And I wanted to somehow express to you today why I love the university so much and why I have chosen to make my home in the university. And when I was thinking about this talk, I was reading 3 books, and the first one was Daniel Tammet's Thinking in Numbers. I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Tammet, but he is an autistic savant, and he became world famous by being able to recite from memory with no aids the first 22,000 or so digits of the ratio pi, which is an endless series of numbers. He did this in a public place with people watching, I think it was in Oxford, England, and became world famous by breaking the record. Apparently somebody else had done this and only gotten to 21,999, I'm not quite sure. And Tammet is also a very wonderful prose writer. And this book, Thinking in Numbers, is a series of reflections on how numbers have affected human history, how they affect our everyday lives in many ways. And Tammet talks about the beauty of numbers, because for him, numbers have a quality to them. They have a color and they have a texture, which is one of the reasons why he's able to recall them and to think about them with such depth. But he also talks about talking to fellow mathematicians, that they also share with him this love of the beauty of mathematics and the beauty of numbers. And I thought that that was a wonderful sort of a passion for him. And at the same time, I was reading the autobiography of Jessica Ennis, and you may remember her as the British heptathlete who won gold at the London Olympics, 2012 Olympics last year. And in this book, she talks about her training and how she came to track and field, and she talks about how much she loves it. And she said, "I love to run. Running is what I do." And she talks about how much she looks forward to training and competing, something that many of us would hate to do, even if we thought we were going to win a gold medal if we had to do it. And I also was reading Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. And in this novel, Woolf follows a family and their interactions between the family members and some guests at a vacation home over a long period of time. And in this book, there is a character who is a painter, a woman painter, and one of the male characters says to her, "Women can't paint and women can't write." And she struggles with this throughout the book as she tries to continue with her art. And the very end of the book, the very last page, the last sentence, is she puts the final brushstroke onto the painting, a painting she's had in her portfolio for years and never been able to complete. And at the same moment, of course, Virginia Woolf, as the author, finishes this book, and they both prove unequivocally that women can paint and women can write. And so I thought, what kind of passion and what kind of drive it took Virginia Woolf to write this book and for this character to follow this kind of passion. And I thought about the breadth and the depth of the achievements of these people, physical achievements and intellectual achievements and creative achievements, and that these are exactly the kinds of achievements that the university in its ideal state celebrates and creates, actually, and that the Daniel Tammets and the Virginia Woolfs and the Jessica Ennises of our world are the people that we hold up as inspirations. They're models for us. They change the way we see our world. And it reminded me again of what the university can do, even though these people had their experiences outside of a traditional university. But I also thought that where there is lightness, there is also darkness. And with Daniel Tammet, he has Asperger's, and so every day of his life is ruled by rituals that he needs to enact, down to the number of grams of oatmeal he has for breakfast, in order for him to seek some kind of comfort. And he talks about his first partner, and if it was not for the love and support of his first partner, his life would be literally unlivable. And Jessica Ennis talks about suffering career-ending injuries, injuries she was not anticipating that got her out of competition for weeks and weeks and weeks, and she did not know whether she would ever be able to compete or train again. And the depression and the darkness and the disappointment of going through those periods, but to eventually have these greatest achievements of her career. And of course, Virginia Woolf, suffering from debilitating depression, a depression that eventually caused her to take her own life. So where there is darkness, there is light, and where there is light, there is darkness. And I thought about the university. And when we go into the university, we welcome people into our classes who are complex human beings, who have both of these parts to their personality and everything in between. And when we bring them into our classrooms, we have to expect that where there is brightness of intellect and sharpness and creativity, there will also sometimes be serious personal problems. And I can tell you from spending many, many years in the university that it is a place which often has our most brightest people, but also people who often have our most serious problems. So when we go into our classrooms and my colleagues complain to me about students who are unmotivated or unruly or disengaged, I think that a lot of what they are often seeing is people who are depressed, and people who have OCD, and people who have anxiety disorders of various kinds, people who have mental challenges and emotional challenges, people who are suffering from spiritual and emotional pain. So when we always say we would love to have these students in our classrooms who are eager and they've done the readings, this is the thing my colleagues always talk about, why haven't they done the readings? That they've done the readings and they're eager to learn, and they come and they find people who are not necessarily ready to do that. I think it's unrealistic for us to expect that students are any different from us and that they're going to be able to be on call and have their moods in the right place at the right time. Because when we're educating whole people, I don't think what we should be educating is simply the convenient and pleasant parts of people's physicality and their intellect and their spirituality. I think what we need to do when we educate the whole person is look down and up the whole person and see how we can engage those people in different ways. Now, these are problems that we don't talk about very much in our culture, although that is starting to change. And it is not problems that we talk about in our universities very much, even though our universities are filled with people who have various problems for reasons I've already indicated. But that is also starting to change. And at my own university, Mount Allison University, in the last year, we've convened at least 3 events that have brought people together from a wide geographical basis and from different disciplines to talk about student mental health and how we can best support people in their journeys with the various challenges that they face. And certainly, we can offer them counseling to a certain extent, and certainly our student services can help them. But when I think about the university in its ideal sense, I think that there is something about the university and what it represents and what it does that does something to bring people's wholeness from their brokenness and that brings people's darkness into their light. Because the university, in its ideal state, and I'm not saying it's in its ideal state now, but I think it can be, is a place that accepts all people equally. It encourages all people equally. It supports all people equally. The university doesn't care where you came from. It doesn't care how many cars you own or what your parents did. It doesn't care about your status in society. The university doesn't care what language you grew up speaking. It doesn't care what kind of accent you speak with now. The university doesn't care about your religious beliefs, if you have any, your political beliefs, if you have any, or if you have any at all. The university is interested in your ideas no matter what those ideas are, because the university is a place in which all ideas, all problems, all issues can be discussed in a place that is open and that is safe and that is respectful. And the university doesn't care about your gender or your sexuality. It doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care how you do your hair, or even if you have hair at all. And so I think the university has something to offer people because the university is, in its ideal state, a place where we can bring our total selves to a study of any kind of discipline and do with that what we may. My discipline is music history, as you heard, and so as a music historian, I teach classes on all different aspects of music history, including popular music and also classical music of various kinds. And I have the privilege of talking to students about what music means. Because what music history is really about is what music means to us, how we use it individually and how we use it as a culture. And so we talk about how music is used in concentration camps. We talk about how music is used in torture. We talk about how music is used to create dissent, how it's used as propaganda, how it's used to hurt people, and how it's used to tear people apart. But we also talk about how music is something that heals people in incredible ways, how it is used by people with mental and physical challenges to help to heal them and to make their lives more whole. And we talk about how music is so important to our personal identities and who we are. And I know that many of my students, whether they are music majors or whether they are non-music majors, love music so much that it is only one of the few things that has come between them and a breakdown or a depression or even a suicide. So I know when I'm talking to them, I'm talking about something that's very vital and very deep and very human. And so one of the things I have my students do, regardless of where they come from, is to write a personal music history. And in this history, I allow any amount of creativity. In other words, they can use any media they want in any way they want. And I ask them to identify not the famous people from music history, but the people who are part of their music history. So every song that has been important to them, every lesson that they ever took, every rehearsal, every concert they went to, people in their families, people who have been their teachers, people who have been their friends. And I ask them to put this together in such a way as to put together who they are as human beings through the use of music. And I've had incredible results with this. People give me everything from a DVD with a soundtrack, PowerPoint presentations, scrolls that roll out, huge poster boards. You can't imagine the amount of creativity that comes out of people and how invested they are in doing this particular exercise. And what's interesting to me is that it's not all about, sweetness and light. They talk about their disappointments, they talk about grieving, they talk about suffering, they talk about also great moments of joy and inspiration. Now you might say, okay, well music is easy to do that with because people love music and it speaks to them deeply. But I think that in the university, everything can speak to you in that depth if you approach it with your whole self. So for a student who is in a sociology class who simply wants to make the world a better place, to a student who is in a biology class who wants to become a doctor and heal people, to someone who is an architect who wants to build more accessible buildings, to somebody who is in mathematics who simply loves the beauty of mathematics. That all people can write their own personal history of those disciplines and bring together all of the things that separate them from themselves and from other people into a more whole and complete person. And I think that if we're going to think about the future of universities, we shouldn't be thinking about how we're going to save ourselves with better finances or better facilities or better curricula or a sexy new technology, because I don't think, even though those things are very important for student learning, that that is the way forward for the university. I think what we want to build is this ideal university of equality. And what I think we need to do to save that institution and to move it forward is to reach into people's passions. The passion of a Daniel Tammet, even when he suffers. The passion of a Jessica Ennis, even when she has a setback. The passion of a Virginia Woolf, amongst all of her different challenges. Because passion is not about happiness. Passion is not about feeling good. I mean, certainly there's optimism, and you need to have a certain kind of a drive and enthusiasm for what you do. But passion also involves blood, sweat, and tears. Passion involves having to go through, as we heard today, failure and fear and insecurity, because wherever there is passion, there is also all of those things. And if we can get our students to engage in that way, I think that this is the way we see forward for our universities. Now, I'm not the expert on how that has to happen, and maybe somebody else is going to come behind me and give us, the new model, but I think that our universities are not buildings and they are not curriculums, they are people. And people are not illuminated from without. People are illuminated from within. In the last scene into the Lighthouse, there are only some characters who remain. Some have died, some have gone other ways. And in this scene, as this woman painter is sitting on the shore finishing her canvas, there's a father and two children who go in a boat to the lighthouse, and they have been waiting for their entire lives to go to this magical, mystical place, the lighthouse where everything will be made clear. And in this boat, it's a very sort of small scene. They're sort of in a foggy place, and the son and daughter are sitting there with both good feelings about their father who is with them and negative feelings about their father who is with them. And when they finally get to this place, to this lighthouse, those things are resolved. The painting on the shore is finished. And that lighthouse, that journey, regardless of how difficult it is the journey that university, I think, in its ideal state, is for people. And it is for them at one of the most important issues and points of their lives. So when I think about the university, as I think it should be, and it could be, and it will be, you can see why I think that the university is a kind of a paradise.